Pain as a catalyst for awakening. There comes a moment, sometimes after years, sometimes in the stillness of one unbearable night, when pain no longer breaks you. It wakes you. In Edgar Cayce's teachings, pain is never framed as a mistake. It is not random, not cruel, not divine neglect. Rather, it is often a threshold, a turning point in the life of the soul where illusions begin to dissolve and something ancient within begins to stir. Many who awaken spiritually do not do so on mountaintops. They awaken in hospital rooms, in grief, in loneliness. Not because suffering is holy in itself, but because it shatters the ego's walls. Walls that kept the soul locked away. Pain cracks open the container, and what emerges is not weakness. It is the remembering of who we truly are. Cayce gave countless readings where the moment of spiritual awakening followed trauma, illness, or heartbreak. He called pain the Great Awakener, a force that strips away what is false and leaves us with only what endures: soul, spirit, love. One such case was that of a man named Charles, who came to Cayce after losing his business, his family, and his sense of identity in the Great Depression. He believed his life was over, but in trance, Cayce revealed that Charles had once lived as a wealthy but ruthless landowner who ignored the suffering of the poor. This life of loss was not punishment. It was a gift, a setup for awakening. Without his material trappings, Charles would rediscover what he had once abandoned: humility, connection, service. And he did. He went on to become a teacher for children displaced by the economy. The very grief that broke him also rebuilt him as someone more whole. This is how pain catalyzes awakening. It dissolves the false self and lays bare the soul's raw truth. Think of a forest fire. It ravages, it consumes. But in its wake, dormant seeds awaken. Plants that only bloom after fire begin to grow. In many ways, the soul works the same way. What the fire consumes is often what the soul no longer needs. In this way, pain becomes an initiator, a rite of passage that cannot be studied, only lived. You may have known someone who was forever changed by their suffering, a woman who found her voice only after surviving abuse, a man who became tender and wise after losing everything he thought mattered, a young adult who discovered purpose only after facing the brink of despair. These are not accidental transformations. They are soul movements, and they often begin with pain. Cayce spoke of this process in layers. First, pain shatters the identity we thought was real. Then, it pushes us into a state of surrender. And finally, in that surrender, the deeper self emerges. But not everyone awakens through pain. Some resist, some numb, some repeat cycles again and again. Cayce reminded us that pain alone does not transform. It is the soul's willingness to feel it fully and listen deeply that allows the alchemy to begin. And when that happens, pain becomes a sacred guide. There's a well-known story of the mystic Teresa of Avila, who once fell off her donkey into a muddy ditch and cried out to God, "If this is how you treat your friends, no wonder you have so few." It's humorous, yes, but behind the humor is truth. Even the most awakened souls experience suffering. The difference is in how they relate to it. Cayce often said, "You meet yourself coming and going." In other words, the soul meets its own choices again and again, not to be punished, but to be purified. This is not passive acceptance. It's active transformation. When you face pain, not with resistance, but with inquiry, what is this showing me? Where does this take me? What is ready to fall away? You invite the soul to rise. There's a quiet moment in many spiritual journeys when the question shifts from, "Why is this happening to me?" to "What is this awakening in me?" That is the moment the soul steps forward. And what often awakens is compassion, empathy, clarity, a sense of purpose no longer tied to external things, but to presence, to being, to truth. You may have seen it in someone who has survived great loss. They are not necessarily cheerful, but they carry a stillness, a gravity, a gentleness that wasn't there before. They have seen behind the curtain, and they walk a little slower, speak a little softer. They have become soul-guided. Cayce believed that pain is one of the fastest accelerators of soul evolution. Not because the universe is cruel, but because awakening is not always comfortable. It is always real. He often advised people not to seek suffering, but to meet it differently when it comes. To allow it to be a signal, not a sentence. A teacher, not a tormentor. So, what about you? Has pain carved a hollow space in you? And could that space now be a chamber for light? Have you ever emerged from a dark season with new eyes, a new voice, a new hunger for something truer? Then perhaps your pain has already begun its work, and if you're still in it, still aching, still searching, know that the process is not done. But you are not lost. You are awakening, slowly, deeply, irrevocably. In the next section, we'll explore something equally profound: how the pain of one person can ripple outward, becoming not just personal transformation, but a healing force for others. This is the mystery of collective karma. When a soul suffers, not only for itself, but for the healing of a family, a people, even the world. Healing the collective through individual pain. There are times when the pain you carry doesn't feel like it belongs solely to you. It's heavier, older, harder to name. You find yourself reacting with emotions that seem disproportionate, grief that floods you without clear cause, fear that's too ancient for your personal story. And deep down, you suspect, this didn't begin with me. Edgar Cayce understood this feeling well. He spoke of collective karma, the idea that some souls incarnate not just to resolve their own past, but to heal ancestral, generational, or cultural wounds. These souls carry more than their own story. They come to interrupt cycles, absorb patterns, rewrite legacies. Their pain echoes the trauma of families, bloodlines, or communities that have been repeating the same wounds across centuries. It's a heavy calling. But it's also one of the most sacred. Cayce described it like this: imagine a family line that has known centuries of abandonment. The mothers leave, the fathers vanish, the children grow up longing, aching. Now imagine a soul in that lineage who says, before birth, "Let me go in, let me be the one who stays, let me feel it all, and let me not pass it on." That soul, Cayce said, is a breaker of chains, and often it suffers deeply, not because it is being punished, but because it is transmuting pain that didn't begin in this lifetime. What they carry may have started generations back. Consider a woman who always feels unworthy of love, despite being deeply kind and capable. Cayce might point to a great-grandmother who was abandoned during childbirth and passed down the belief that love equals loss. Now this woman has incarnated not just to heal her own heart, but to clear the echo of abandonment for those who came before, and for those yet to come. This is ancestral healing, and it's a thread Cayce returned to again and again. He once gave a reading for a man who had battled addiction his entire life. No matter how many times he got clean, something pulled him back. Cayce saw in the records that his lineage carried generations of unexpressed sorrow, men who had turned to alcohol to silence grief from war, displacement, and poverty. The man's soul had taken on this pattern not to be destroyed by it, but to bring it into the light. His battle was not personal, it was ceremonial. When a soul chooses to heal a collective wound, the path is rarely easy. There is often loneliness, confusion, the sense of carrying too much. But here's the quiet miracle. When one person begins to heal, others around them begin to shift. The mother who starts therapy heals something in her daughter. The father who chooses sobriety changes the arc of his grandchildren's lives. The child who refuses to carry shame opens a doorway that no one in the family knew existed. Cayce taught that the soul is not isolated. We are threads in a great spiritual tapestry. When one thread changes color, the whole pattern changes. He also believed that souls often incarnate in clusters. You don't come into your family by accident. You've likely been with them before, in different configurations, different roles, different centuries. You may have once been your father's sibling, your child's parent, your enemy's lover. Together, your soul group evolves across lifetimes, helping one another heal, grow, and remember. Within that group, some souls take on more burden than others. Cayce called them pillars. These are the ones who agree, often in silence, to stand in the storm so that others can learn to build shelter. Their lives may appear tragic, but their impact is profound. There's a story about a young man named Elias, born into a family full of rage. His grandfather was violent, his father distant, his brother cruel. But Elias? He was gentle, sensitive. He refused to hit back, refused to scream. It made him the target. But it also made him the first in his line to break the pattern. Cayce revealed that Elias was not weak. He was the strongest soul in the lineage, the one who chose to return not to repeat history, but to rewrite it. And here's the heart of it. These healing souls are often invisible. The world may never applaud them. Their name may never appear in books. But Cayce assured that in the Akashic Records, their work is etched in gold. They are the quiet ones who stop yelling and start listening. The ones who choose forgiveness where vengeance has lived for lifetimes. The ones who stay when everyone else has left. The ones who turn toward the pain, not away from it. If this sounds like you, it's because it probably is. If you've always felt like the emotional center of your family, if you've absorbed more than your share, if you've carried the ache of things that were never spoken, if you've heard the whisper, "It ends with me," then you may be living a collective healing contract. And though it may not feel like it today, your pain is making space for freedom in more lives than you know. Cayce encouraged such souls to seek rest, beauty, prayer, and solitude, not as escape, but as nourishment. Healing the collective is exhausting, and though the work is sacred, the soul still needs renewal. He also advised writing, journaling, recording dreams. Because as you heal the unseen, it helps to make it seen. Your voice, your story, your insight, they become torches for others walking the same dark path. So if you carry more than your share, carry it with awareness. Not as a martyr, but as a midwife to a new pattern. And know this: healing does not always mean fixing. Sometimes it means feeling what no one else was willing to feel and choosing not to pass it forward. In the next section, we turn to the man who helped us see all of this, Edgar Cayce himself. What did he see when he entered the Akashic Records? What stories did he witness that revealed the soul's astonishing courage and the secret agreements we've forgotten? What Cayce saw in the records, when Edgar Cayce lay down, closed his eyes, and entered that deep, trance-like state, something extraordinary happened. His voice would change, his breathing would slow, and then, as if tuning into a vast, invisible library, he began to speak, not from intellect, but from memory beyond time. He called it the Akashic Records, a vibrational field that holds the complete story of every soul, every thought, every action, every intention. It wasn't a belief system to him, it was reality, a record of consciousness itself. Through more than 14,000 documented readings, Cayce accessed this infinite archive to help people understand their health, their relationships, their purpose, and most astonishingly, their pain. And again, he saw the same thing. Behind nearly every suffering was a soul choice. Not all suffering, of course. Life still unfolds with randomness, with the collective influence of a free-willed planet. But in cases of deep, persistent, soul-shaping pain, Cayce almost always found a reason, a thread stretching back through past lives, ancestral ties, or sacred agreements. Take the story of Anna, a woman who came to Cayce plagued by severe arthritis that no medical treatment could relieve. She asked, "Why me?" In trance, Cayce saw that in a previous life, Anna had been a commander in ancient times who had ordered brutal punishments, binding prisoners in shackles, ignoring their pain. In this life, the echo of rigidity lived in her body, not as vengeance, but as an opportunity to develop compassion, to soften, to care for her own body with the tenderness she once denied others. This wasn't told as blame. Cayce's voice during readings was always gentle, reverent. He spoke as someone reading the soul's sacred diary, not condemning it. Another reading spoke of Thomas, a man who had always felt like an outsider, abandoned by his parents, drifting through life with a quiet ache of unbelonging. Cayce saw that in 3 past lives, Thomas had chosen isolation, joining monastic orders, avoiding human connection to pursue solitary enlightenment. This time, his soul had agreed to the opposite experience, to feel the hunger for love. Not to suffer, but to finally understand the cost of disconnection, so that he could learn, deeply, to belong to himself and to open to others. The records Cayce accessed were filled with these sacred paradoxes, where pain wasn't senseless, but symmetrical, where lives fit together like puzzle pieces across centuries, where a betrayal in 1340 becomes a chance for forgiveness in 2025. And sometimes, what Cayce saw was even more humbling. Souls choosing hardship not for their own growth, but to help another evolve. In one case, a child was born with developmental delays. Cayce read for the mother and revealed that she had once abandoned this same soul in a life hundreds of years prior. Now, they had reversed roles. The child had agreed to return in limitation, not out of vengeance, but so the mother could learn what she once could not. How to stay, how to nurture, how to love without condition. These were not casual stories. They were blueprints of redemption. Not the kind you find in books, but the kind souls write over lifetimes. In his own words, Cayce said, "Each soul writes its own record, line by line, emotion by emotion, and the soul is the author, reader, and rewriter of its tale." What made Cayce's work so powerful was not just the detail, but the freedom it gave people. Freedom from guilt, freedom from victimhood, freedom from the lie that pain is punishment. Instead, he gave people back their dignity, their agency. He helped them see that their soul wasn't being punished. It was remembering, correcting, liberating itself. Cayce also revealed that the records are not just passive archives. They are alive. They respond to intention. They shift when the soul truly changes. When we act with compassion, forgive, or choose a higher road, the vibration of our record alters. What was once heavy becomes light. What was once fated becomes flexible. This is why he emphasized free will. Even if the soul agreed to certain challenges before birth, it still holds the power, right now, to respond with consciousness, with grace, with love. And that response rewrites the future. One of Cayce's most striking readings involved a woman who had lived multiple lives as an abuser. In this life, she had chosen to be abused, not because she deserved it, but because she wanted to know the pain she had once caused. That knowing would birth empathy. That empathy would become a healing seed. And one day, she would return again, not as victim or perpetrator, but as healer. This is the arc Cayce saw repeated. Victim becomes healer. Tyrant becomes protector. Outcast becomes guide. And suffering, if faced with love, becomes light. What Cayce witnessed was not a judgmental God keeping score. He saw a loving universe allowing every soul the freedom to evolve, to make amends, to become whole again. He once said, "No soul is ever beyond redemption, because what matters is not what the soul has done, but what it is willing to become." So what might your record say? What threads are you continuing? What lessons are asking to be remembered, not as shame, but as a doorway? You may never know your past lives in full detail, but you can know their echoes. They live in your patterns, in your triggers, in your deepest yearnings. And you can choose, even now, to meet them with eyes wide open and begin to write a new chapter. In the next section, we'll explore how this alchemy happens, not just in the records, but in the heart. When suffering is met not with resistance, but with love. Because there is one thing that transforms karma faster than any other force, and that is the decision to love in the midst of pain. The power of choosing love in the midst of pain. There is a quiet moment in every soul's journey, after the fire has burned, after the illusions have fallen, where a choice arises. Not the choice to fight or flee, not the choice to numb or resist, but the choice to love anyway. This is the moment Edgar Cayce described as the turning point in every karmic cycle. The instant when pain meets awareness and the soul chooses a higher path, even if it hurts. You see, karma is not undone by time. It is not undone by avoidance or endurance alone. It is undone, transcended by love. Not sentimental love, not performance, but the kind of love that looks into the face of pain and says, "You will not define me." The kind that forgives what was once unforgivable. The kind that stays soft in the presence of cruelty. The kind that surrenders, not out of defeat, but out of knowing that nothing real can be harmed. Cayce gave many readings in which karmic loops had persisted across lifetimes. Not because the soul was bad, but because it hadn't yet chosen love where fear had ruled. In one case, a woman came to him plagued by bitterness. Every relationship she entered ended in betrayal. She had hardened her heart. But the records revealed that in a past life, she had betrayed others repeatedly, and now souls were returning to mirror back the wound. Not to punish, but to offer a sacred moment. Would she now choose differently? Would she love even when it hurt? That moment, Cayce said, was more powerful than 1,000 lifetimes of retribution. Love collapses karma, because karma is not about justice, it's about balance. And love is the great equalizer, the great harmonizer. There's a passage in one of Cayce's readings where he said, "When you respond in love to that which has been a source of hate, you lift yourself beyond karma and into grace." Let that sink in. It means that no matter what has happened, no matter what was done to you or by you, there is always a path to freedom. And that path is love. Not passive love, not naive acceptance, but a soul-deep recognition that we are not here to perpetuate old stories. We are here to rewrite them. So how do we choose love when we're hurting? Cayce offered several simple, powerful practices. Pray for those who have harmed you, not to approve of what they did, but to release the chain that binds you to them. Bless your suffering, even if you don't understand it yet. Say, I don't know why this is here, but I trust that it is shaping me. Offer kindness when it is not earned, because the soul you offer it to may be a version of you in another life. Speak truth with compassion, especially when you want to attack. Choose silence over vengeance, stillness over chaos, presence over projection. These acts are not always easy, but they are transformational. Because when you choose love in the midst of pain, you are doing more than healing your own karma. You are shifting the vibration of the entire lineage, the entire field around you. Cayce described one man who had been abandoned by his father and later by his wife. The pattern was clear. Rejection. Over and over. The man had every reason to shut down, but instead he chose to adopt a child who had also been abandoned. He gave the very thing he had been denied, and in doing so, he broke the pattern. That is the power of conscious love. It doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. In the Akashic Records, Cayce saw these moments of conscious love shine like stars. He said, they become guiding lights for others still lost in darkness. And that's another mystery. Your choice to love, even in private, even without witness, may light the way for someone else you will never meet. Karma is not only individual, it is collective. When you forgive, it softens the field for others to do the same. This is especially true when you love yourself. So many karmic threads persist because we keep punishing ourselves for mistakes, for weakness, for not knowing better. But what if, instead of punishment, you gave yourself the one thing the old pattern never offered? Grace. You're allowed to begin again. In Cayce's vision, the soul's journey is not a straight path. It spirals, it loops, it gets lost, then finds its way back home. And each time it chooses love, instead of blame, instead of fear, it rises. So if you're in pain right now, this is not the end of your story. This is your invitation to speak differently, to treat yourself more gently, to offer love even when no one sees, to remember who you are. You are not your past lives. You are not your pain. You are not your karma. You are the one who can end the cycle. And maybe, just maybe, that's why your soul came back. In the next and final section, we'll turn our attention to the deeper wisdom of the soul's strength. How even in silence, in the quiet endurance of a painful life, a sacred victory unfolds. Because some of the greatest triumphs are never loud. They are lived and remembered. The quiet strength of the soul's journey. Some lives do not come with applause. They are not marked by fame, achievement, or milestones others recognize. They pass quietly, ordinary on the surface, unnoticed by most. But within them lies a strength so profound, even the Akashic Records shimmer with reverence. Edgar Cayce saw this clearly. Some of the greatest souls are not the loudest. They are not the ones on stages or in books. They are the ones who carry pain without bitterness, who endure difficulty without surrendering to despair, who keep loving quietly, even when love is not returned. This is the silent triumph of the soul. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need recognition. It simply fulfills its vow, one breath, one choice, one small act of love at a time. Cayce often spoke of unsung healers, souls who incarnate to hold energy, to anchor light, to break patterns quietly in the fabric of daily life. A school teacher who never marries but becomes a stabilizing force for generations of children. A caregiver who spends their whole life tending to a parent, never seeking escape or thanks. A factory worker who, through small kindnesses, brings hope to those around him. These lives may appear simple, but in the Akashic Records, they shine like gold threads. Because strength, in the language of the soul, is not about dominance. It's about persistence. It's about choosing to show up again, and again, and again. One of Cayce's readings involved a woman named Grace. She had lost her husband in war, her son to illness, and her sense of purpose to years of chronic pain. When she asked Cayce, "Why am I still here?" his reading revealed that her soul had once been careless with others' suffering. In this life, she came to learn tenderness, not in comfort, but in sorrow. Her gentle presence, forged in fire, would become a source of healing for others. And though she would never know the full extent of her impact, her soul would remember, and that's the secret. Even when no one else sees you, your soul sees you. The Akashic Records see you. The silent choices, the unseen endurance, the compassion offered in secret, all of it is recorded. This is why Cayce often told people, "Do not judge a life by its outer success. Judge it by the soul's quiet growth." You may feel tired. You may wonder if your struggles mean you've failed. But perhaps they mean the opposite. Perhaps your soul chose this exact path because it knew that through it, something eternal would be born. This is not romanticizing pain. It's recognizing that pain, when met with courage and love, becomes alchemy. It burns away what is false. It reveals what is indestructible. And what's left is you. Not the role, not the mask, but the soul. Cayce often said, "The soul's victory is not always seen in this world, but it is always known." Maybe that's why you've always felt like you were carrying something more than just your own story. Maybe that's why you've felt ancient since childhood, why you've known what others forgot, why you love deeply even when it costs you. You are not weak. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are doing soul work, moment by moment, breath by breath, even now. And though the road is long and often lonely, you are never alone. Your guides walk with you. Your past selves whisper encouragement. Your future self is already reaching back, saying, "Keep going. You're almost there." So as we near the end of this journey, take a moment to recognize the quiet strength inside you. It has kept you alive. It has carried you across lifetimes. It has been your compass when everything else fell away. And that strength, it is sacred. It is yours. And it is enough. We began this journey with a question. Why would a soul choose a life of suffering? We've wandered through karma and courage, through memory and mission. We've glimpsed stories etched in light, agreements made in silence, and love hidden beneath lifetimes of ache. But now, at the end, perhaps the real question is not why suffering is chosen, but what it makes possible. Because if Cayce was right, and thousands of soul stories say he was, then your pain is not random. It's not meaningless. It's not punishment. It's a bridge between lifetimes, a bridge between forgetting and remembering, a bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And maybe the path has been hard. Maybe you've carried more than your share. Maybe the answers haven't come in the way you hoped. But even now, in this moment, your soul is not asking for perfection. It's asking for presence, for awareness, for one choice toward love. Just one. Because that one choice, today, right now, echoes across dimensions. It ripples forward and backward in time. It softens karma. It awakens lineage. It rewrites the records. And you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to know every past life or solve every mystery. You only have to remember this. You are not your wounds. You are not your mistakes. You are not your suffering. You are the soul who chose to return, to grow, to love, to heal what others could not. to rise again and again, even when no one is watching. And somewhere, in that temple of light before you were born, you said yes. To this body, to this life, to this lesson. So if your heart is heavy, rest. If your path is unclear, trust. If your memory is dim, listen. The soul remembers, and it will always guide you home. After all, maybe you've always known this. Maybe you didn't need to be told. Maybe you just needed to remember. Maybe you've been walking with strength all along, not loudly, but truly. And maybe, just maybe, this is not the first time you've heard these words. Maybe it's simply the first time you've heard them in this life. So take a breath, feel your feet, and keep going. Because somewhere, beyond the veil, your soul is smiling and whispering, you are doing exactly what you came here to do. You are exactly where you are meant to be. You are already becoming free.